Hey, wine mermaids. This is the Peace, Love, and Wine podcast, bringing you happy hour conversations with awesome women on self-care, sisterhood, and creative living to reduce stress and maximize joy. Life is short, so grab a glass and get ready to sip, sparkle, and make a splash. Make sure to visit peaceloveandwine.com and enter your email to receive VIP deals and get your free self-care download. Now, here's your wine sister hostess with the mostest, Tiffany Humfeld.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Peace, Love, and Wine podcast. This is Tiffany here today with Suki Sohn. She is a transformational business coach and she primarily works with women. But welcome, Suki.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here because it sounds like you have done a lot of important self-work and then now you help other women do that. And that's one of the things that I focus on as well. So can you give us the 60-second version of your history and how you got to where you are today? But first, maybe define what a transformational business coach is, if you think it works in that order. Otherwise, do the story.
Sounds good. So let me start with my my story, because then I guess a transformative business coach will make more sense. So I started out, with an MBA, kind of a normal path, working at the time, Disney. And then I went through some real heartbreak moments. I found out my husband of 5 years was having an affair before, during, and after my first pregnancy, our first son. I didn't realize this, and I found out after the fact when he was about 4 months old. And of course, I tried to patch things together, and it didn't work out. Eventually, I left, and that kind of set me on more of a spiritual journey. Until then, I was very focused on my career, making more money, going to nice places, and living my life, I guess, based on what social expectations were. At that moment, I just felt like I was living a lie when I found out. All of the stuff, all the beautiful things that surrounded me, I felt like was a complete lie. So I went on, I guess that was dark night of my soul. And I spent the following decade or more, actually more, studying, the reasons of being and, what life is all about. And that led me to working with now, as I do now, as a transformative coach for women. But because of my background, I find that most of my clients are executives or entrepreneurs. And I still having that very strong background. And without it, I kind of feel bored.
Right.
I kind of straddle the two worlds, working on, but basically, business strategy as well as personal transformation, personal leadership. So I kind of coined myself to be a feminine leadership coach, working on not only kind of the external strategic aspects of business, but as well as a internal mindset. I mean, I find that once you get to a certain point, everybody has basic skills. You have an MBA, you worked in your business for so many years. You have the basic skills to be successful. What sets apart the real people that really break through is, I feel like, the internal game.
Definitely. I agree.
Yeah, and that's brought me to where I am. And I know, Tiffany, your podcast is a lot about self-care. I absolutely 100% agree. Without that, you can't go further.
No, you don't have anything left to give if you're not filling yourself up, right?
Exactly. So that's why I kind of came to now, I guess, calling myself a transformative business coach. So yeah, hence my title. I kind of move around with what I call myself because, whatever works for the person I'm speaking to.
I totally understand. I do that too. And sometimes it makes more sense to use one title in a certain situation, and sometimes it's a different one. So Speaking of which, you're an author. And you have your second book is being released soon. So share the title of your first book and then move into the second one if you would, please.
Okay. The first book is called Happily Ever After. And that was really, I guess, a bit of a cathartic book for me, because it kind of traces, at least in the beginning of the traces of kind of my journey from being a corporate executive and the heartache that I went through, and then all the work that I did, the inner work that I did to, achieve a certain level of peace, inner peace, and the techniques and tools that I used to reach that point. So that was
those tools that were crucial in your journey.
Can I share some of them? Absolutely. Meditation, yoga, mindfulness. I've studied many different Buddhist traditions, Taoist traditions, other energy healing modalities, spent a bunch of time in Sedona and Bali and all these places. I guess right now my practice is a Buddhist meditation practice. I usually, I meditate about an hour a day. My journey didn't start there, obviously. It started from like 10 minutes, 10 minutes of quiet time. Right. But anyway, so in my book, in that first book, I share a lot of the exercises and meditation. And some of them are actually not meditations, and some of them might be a little strange for the Western world, because there's some Taoist exercises like tapping and movement exercises that I talk about in my first book. And
more popularity in the Western world.
Yes. Because it works. It worked for me. And I think that also certain movement type mindful practices are good for the modern world, because, we're inundated with so much information and data that when you're told to go sit quiet for 10 minutes, like most people can't do it. So I felt like it was when I start working with clients, that's the first thing I have them do, some type of movement meditation. And it kind of helps them clear their mind. When the body moves, the mind stills. So I feel like that's a nice segue into calming down, and then you can do a short meditation at the end of it, because you kind of like worked out your monkey mind a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I talk about a bunch of those kind of exercises in my first book, and then that naturally kind of led to my second book, which was kind of the first book is working out all your inner demons and getting yourself more in alignment. And the second book is really about empowerment and how to awaken certain, natural gifts and talents and powers that we have as women. So
share the title, because it's an amazing title.
Yes. The second book, the title is called Alpha Bitch to Enchantress. So I think in the corporate, especially successful corporate women or entrepreneurs are used to being the alpha bitch, like the dominant person takes charge of everything and takes care of everything. But I think what I found in my situation and my journey from being the alpha bitch, the successful corporate person, to my transition to being more of the enchanted creature that I think I am more now these days, is when you're in that corporate space in the material plane, you completely lose touch with what's beyond you. The quantum field, God, the creator, the source, the well, however, people name this. But that's the aspect that really, at the end of the day, controls everything around us. We have this illusion that we actually control what we do or the outcomes in our lives. And I'm sure showing up is obviously half the battle. But at the end of the day, we can do our best and things still don't turn out the way you think. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And one of the concepts that you talk about in the book is fluidity, right? And
yes.
That's really important for those challenges that you just said, not being able to really be in control, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Adaptability and flexibility. And that's actually a strength that women naturally have. I go into a little bit about the neuroscience of the female brain, and the female brain is actually better designed for change management, if you will, fluidity, flexibility, and adaptability. If you mind, I'll tell a little story about these monkeys in Japan. And it'll make sense. Yeah. There are these group of monkeys that these primatologists have been studying for decades. And, as being monkeys being very close to, humanity in terms of their nature and, their habits and behaviors. What they found is that one of young female monkey accidentally dropped a sweet potato that was given to them in the water. So the stream of water washed off the sweet potato. And then she started eating after, and she realized she likes it better that way instead of eating all the dirt that was on the sweet potato. So after that, every time she got a sweet potato, she'd go to the stream and wash off the dirt before she eats it. So then her friends started doing it. And then the children started doing it. The young ones, started doing it. And the last people to adapt were the older males. And I think that you see this in also, in human circles as well, whereas young women are generally much more open and adaptable to change. And it's the old men that tend to be most rigid. And that's because also social conditioning as well.
Right.
You're expected to be, compliant, whereas boys are supposed to be, stalwart and like steady. And I think that has something to do with, but also has something to do with our brains as well. The female brain has higher activation of the white brain matter, which basically is kind of the networking material between the different data processing centers in the brain. And the gray matter is more activated in men, and that's kind of what gives them, that's the data processing center itself that gives this ability for tunnel vision and focus. So I know I'm getting into a little bit of science here, but
my husband definitely has that.
Yeah. So, tunnel vision is great for the hunter-gatherer society where they had to go catch the prey. And for women, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, we had to multitask. We had to be adaptable to whatever was going on because we had to tend the fire, look after the kids, and watch everything that was going on in camp. So there's a part of, I think, genetics, evolution, as well as social conditioning that kind of makes us more adaptable, more fluid, if you will.
And so how can we use that to our advantage and to, become our best selves?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I noticed is that certainly for myself, I modeled men in my work to be successful. And my role models were men because at that time there weren't that many female role models for me. And then what happened, at least for me, is that I started taking a lot of masculine qualities. And in my transformation, in my inner work, one of the things that I realized is that I kind of forgot that I was a woman. And also society kind of promotes more quote-unquote masculine traits above feminine ones. Mm-hmm. So being able to be fixed and standing up for yourself and like sticking to your guns was kind of more rewarded than being flexible and adaptable. Things are changing now. I think that the common language and the kind of all the new training that comes up in Harvard Business School to all the top business schools in the world and the corporate world now is about emotional intelligence and adaptability and all of these things that in the past decade or so that's really kind of shifting things. But, back over a decade ago, this was still kind of the tendency. And what I realized I had to do, I had to accept the fact that I was a woman and everything that came with it. I mean, of course, I still have, quote unquote, those masculine traits of being able to get the job done. But also, remember, I'm a woman. And then there's so much power that actually comes from being a woman. Actually, when I realized, okay, the gray matter and the white matter, and I'm naturally more adaptable, I'm like, that's true. So things going on, in things that happen at work, the ability to go with the flow instead of seeing that as, she's wishy-washy. No. I think it's a perception of how you actually see that. Mm-hmm. And because going with the flow type of attitude was kind of put down, I feel like a lot of feminine qualities were marginalized and put down as considered that something not desirable. Right. But actually embracing every aspect of us for all of the female characteristics that that we embody as women. In my book, I go over some of the other characters. For example, another one is being emotional. Being emotional is one of the things. Oh, women are too emotional. That's why they can't lead, which is completely false because emotions is what drives us. Emotions is what makes us able to make decisions. And this is neuroscience is finding us. We do not make decisions from facts. We make decisions with the emotions. The one thing that instead of trying to stuff down your emotions or avoid your emotions, which the masculine mode does, is to actually fully embrace whatever that is you're feeling. Because there's a lot of wisdom in those emotions.
Right.
So,
and that can be scary, right? How do we do that?
It can be scary. So the one exercise that I do is called managing the emotional flood. And it's a 3-step process. And the first step is actually complete acceptance of what is. So the first thing we do when we have a negative emotion is that we don't want to feel it, right? I'm angry, I'm sad, whatever it is, I feel like crap or less than, whatever. The first emotion, or shame, guilt, whatever it is, the first reaction is that this is a negative emotion and we try to pull away from it. But what we try to resist persists. It can actually keep you stuck exactly where you don't want to be. So accept fully where you are. And I actually have them do this by saying it. for example, if the emotion is anger, I am angry. And this is a really interesting thing about the English language too, because in other languages, the way you express how, when you have the feelings of anger, like we could have been saying, I have feelings of anger, but we say, I am angry. You completely identify with the emotion itself. So the 3-step process actually gets you more objective of the emotion itself. So then the second step of the process is then to recognize that it's an emotion that comes and goes. So then the second step, I actually have them say, I have feelings of anger. And then the most important thing about this process is actually feeling what's going on in your body as you say it.
Right, which is also probably the hardest step, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, so that when I start the exercise, when you're angry, you can think of the incident that made you angry and really feel it in every single cell of your body. Let yourself go back to that incident that got you really, really angry and accept it like for everything that it is. Your blood flowing backwards, heat in your head, like wanting to scream, whatever, like feel everything and don't try to avoid it. And the second step is recognize that it's a feeling that you have. And then the third step,
right? It's the feeling.
The feeling, yeah, it's not who you are, it's the feelings that you have. Because another thing that I show my clients is actually the map of emotions through thermal imaging. So when you actually take a picture of somebody who is angry versus somebody who's happy versus somebody who's sad, the energy or the temperature imprint on the body is different. So if you didn't have a body, if you couldn't feel physical sensation, you could not feel that emotion. So basically what emotion is nothing but an energetic pattern in your body. So if you can actually take a step back and recognize that, and then you actually can start shifting the pattern of energy in your body, then you can actually start channeling it. And this is where Taoistic practices come in, where you can actually start sensing what's going on because you're fully aware of the emotions that you have. And then the third step is mastering that emotion by channeling it however you want.
Give me examples of how you would do that.
Pardon me? Can you say that?
Let's hear some examples of how you would start to channel.
Yeah. Well, channeling, it actually comes from recognizing the 3 steps. So once you actually can shift and recognize that it's an energetic pattern, and then you can actually physically sense that emotion. And then what happens is in that process, you'll start to see the energy dissipate yourself.
Right.
So there are tools, of course, that, I actually teach to channel energy and actually move energy from one part of your body or focus energy and cultivate energy. These are all Taoist practices. But in this 3-step process I'm talking about, if it's a matter of anger, then what happens is in that process of the 3 steps, once you get to the third stage of mastering the emotions, already you get this very clear clarity of action. And that's a transformed aspect of anger. When anger is channeled correctly, when you can kind of get over all the physical sensation, the physiology that kind of like makes you do stupid things or say stupid things, once you can actually channel that and feel that, accept that in your body, then all of a sudden like another screen opens and very empowered clarity comes through as to what exactly needs to be done.
Awesome.
So anger is a very beautiful emotion used correctly. And I think that women have an edge with emotions because men from from a very young age are told not to feel.
Right.
Whereas we are free to feel what we feel. It's just a matter of channeling it.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know that I was free to feel what I felt growing up in terms of if it was anything that could be considered negative, right? It was like, go work it out on your own. We don't want to hear it type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, women are definitely used to, whether you accept it or not, you're feeling it. We're very emotional. So definitely agree.
Yeah.
All right. So you talk about how you've had all these really meaningful and painful experiences in your past and the growth that's led you there. How do you think that people can really, when they're making these transformations, how can they have it all? Can they have it all?
Yes, I do believe that you can have it all. But the thing is, in order to have it all, you've got to be super proactive. Most of us live reactively.
Right.
And the way to have it all is be completely proactive and be present in every moment. So for example, like very simple example, let's say you're a mom and you have a job. If you could actually be completely present in both moments, whether you're, because I think one of the common stories is that the working mom always feels guilty, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, how often do you come home from your children and can you be absolutely present with them? If you could, then you wouldn't feel so guilty. If you knew that you were 100% there. But the problem is that we're not. We're still thinking about work. We're still thinking about our to-do list or whatnot. And then when we're at home, we're thinking about work. And when you're at work, now you're thinking about the kids, not being there for the kids. So if you could actually be 100% proactively present in every moment and everything that you do, a lot of this guilt consciousness can go away. And in terms of being proactive versus reactive, when you're proactive, for example, with mindfulness practices, self-care, you can make better decisions.
Oh, right.
You're productive, right? So instead of putzing around, on your computer for 2-3 hours, like you could probably get the same amount of work done in half an hour to an hour. Right. You can be super productive if your mind is trained. So you can have it all, but it does take discipline, not in like a kind of a drill sergeant type of way, but I'm talking about real kind of mindfulness and consciousness of your time and your presence. Yeah.
I totally get it. Yeah. And I kind of see it as you can have it all, but not necessarily all at the same time. And that's kind of what you're saying. I mean, you may be a mother and you may have a job, but you're focused on whatever your hat is while you're at that place.
While you're there. But I mean, I think that is true for any stage of our life, whether we're working or not. We're daughters, we're wives, we're sisters, like we're friends, and we're always wearing different hats throughout the time. Mm-hmm. And I think to be wherever you're at and being completely present and mindful of wherever you're at is how you can live a full life with no regrets.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about creativity because that's another thing that we like to focus on at the podcast. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, writing a book, that's a creative adventure, right? How do you incorporate creativity in your life in other ways?
How do I... Well, I have a very special practice. I study with my teacher in my kind of Buddhist tradition is a wonderful, wonderful woman named Lama Tsultrim Alyon. And she has a program called the Magyu program, which I am also part of. And in the meditation practice, there's a lot of creative elements that you're supposed to bring into your practice. So after my hour-long meditation, there's actually a creative, either a journaling journey process or actually doing something with artwork. You can actually create something, going out and finding pieces of, nature and creating something, or you can draw, paint, whatever you want to do. So it's actually in my daily mindfulness practice that I incorporate creativity. Writing the books, I have to say, really opened up the channel for creativity for me, because it was a disciplined practice where I had a deadline for myself. I was going to write the book in a certain amount of time. And that made me have to sit down every day and listen. And I have to confess, writing the first book was harder because I wasn't used to this kind of, not only discipline, but opening of myself to the muse or creativity. Right. But when I was writing the second book, I was almost like in trance. Once you got familiar with that inner voice that created the muse inside of you, and it's kind of a relationship that you have to cultivate and work on all the time. Mm-hmm. And once you get used to that voice, like the voice is there all the time. And then you're more tapped in and connected to that intimate creativity, instead of struggling to pull it out of you.
You kind of become the Enchantress, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So what time of day do you usually do your meditation practice? Is it usually the same time of day?
I try to do it in the morning, first thing in the morning. It's hard being a mom, kids get sick, they stay home from school one day, and the best laid plans sometimes, go up in the air. But I try to do it first thing in the morning after the kids go to school, or I try to do it even earlier in the morning. But I know, realistically, that doesn't really work for me. And I think try to get up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, to me, it's challenging. So I usually do it right after the kids go to school and before my work day starts.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What did you do today for your creativity aspect?
Today was just the journaling exercise that I did for this journey meditation that I did. So it's very structured for the creativity. And I think that in order to be creative, you want a little structure. You want a container for your creativity.
Right.
So with this particular meditation, it's, and it's a standard procedure that I go through. And then you basically journal the story that unfolded. So, the first step is you invoke the Dakini, which is basically kind of, I guess, a Western word would be like a muse or a divine inspiration. In the Vajrayana Buddhist tradition, it's these wild female energies that are kind of the inspiration, the spirit, and the muse. So you invoke that particular being into, and that being then takes you on a journey. And every day the journey is different. Sometimes I go into the mountains. Sometimes I look like heaven, or sometimes I go deep into the ocean, and then I do a little process where I ask a question, whatever pressing question I have for the day, and then I get the wisdom from the Dakini being that I'm working with, and then after that, usually she turns around, goes away, and gets a gift for me that symbolizes the answer, and then I take the gift and I say thank you, and I come back. So this is a whole story unfolding, and then this happens after my meditation practice. That's one creative exercise that I do attached to my practice.
Can you share what that gift might look like?
Yeah. One time, sometimes it's actually an object and a reminder. Like, for example, one time my journey was all about purity of thought, and then the gift was a clear crystal. Another time, the question was about developing an online program. So kind of distilling what I teach with my private sessions. And the Dakinis actually gave me 3 words that was going to be the outline of the program. So then from there, kind of the outline of the program just came out. I was like, wow, that's really cool. So, the Dakinis, this kind of what they call deity yoga or deity meditation, where you kind of get in touch with this higher being. Really, we're really getting in touch with the aspects of ourselves.
Right.
The creative aspects within ourselves, and allowing imagination and creativity to kind of flow through insights and thoughts and ideas that we didn't know we even had. So yeah, that was my morning practice.
I love it. It's like getting in touch with your own magic, right?
Exactly. Yep.
How do you manage stress? It sounds like your meditation is a large part of that, probably. What else do you do for that, especially being a mother, a wife, and somebody who has their own business? Yeah, meditation is definitely the first thing I go to. The other one is go for a walk in nature. I live in Westchester, so I have a beautiful reservoir nearby. So I go for a walk in there. Spending time in nature is absolutely one of the fastest ways to de-stress. And I find this, I read an article about this, that all the EMF that we're surrounded with, our computers and our phones and whatnot, apparently kind of does funny things to our brainwave. But when we actually go out into nature, leaving all that behind, that we actually start syncing back up into the natural rhythms that we're meant to be in. So there are times where I actually do a daytime wander, where I leave first thing in the morning and I spend the entire day in the woods and then come back at dusk. That's awesome. Yeah. So I don't do that often because, time, but that's something I do once in a while when I feel like I really need to reconnect. Also, I like running. And I think generally moving my body. I also love dancing. I was going to ask you if you like to dance. What kind? I love to dance. I used to go to 5 Rhythms. And I'm not sure if you are familiar with it. It's started by a woman named Gabrielle Roth. And it's basically an ecstatic, organic dance that goes through the 5 Rhythms, means the 5 different stages of life, from childhood all the way to, teenage, like being a teenager, puberty, pubescence, to being an adult, and then old age and death. So it kind of goes through them, and the tempo changes. So it's like a complete organic dance. And that's another way of expressing creativity. Because to me, creativity is nothing but connecting to source and inspiration and letting that just flow through you. And when it's flowing through, you have no idea how it's going to come out. And right. To me, dance was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to close the door quickly. Sorry.
My dog opened the door and walked in and left the door open, of course.
That's okay. I understand that. We've had cats in the background here too.
Yeah, dogs tend to be a little bit noisier. But anyway, yeah, so going back to that concept of creativity, to me, creativity is nothing but plugging into source, the infinite well of all creative source, creative beings, creative things, and letting it flow through you and really having no expectations of what it's going to look like when it comes out. Right. And for me, dance was, especially that organic dance movement class that I used to go to, was kind of my my introduction to creativity flowing through me. I was working in finance at the time. I worked at a hedge fund.
Oh, wow.
And this dance class was really what kept me sane, because it gave me the opportunity to be a woman and express and be embodied in myself and, you know, express myself as a woman. So
I just did my first ecstatic dance class in January, actually.
Oh, great. Great. Yeah. Did you love it?
I did. It was really fun.
Yeah.
It's all about, again, like going with the flow, right? Mm-hmm. And there's really a right or a wrong way to do it, but you're just letting yourself experience your own creativity sort of by moving through the music.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Great way to de-stress too.
What did you say?
Great way to de-stress too.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you're stressed, basically we have contractions in our body. And what organic and ecstatic dance allows you to do, and this is encouraged, and I encourage my clients to do this, that when you might find a movement that you want to keep on repeating, right? And that is exactly because your body has a wisdom to actually break over that energetic pattern, whatever it is, and you stay there. You might look like you're in a mental asylum, but that's okay in these classes. You get to just work out and break up that energetic stuckness. And I think that's like so healing.
It is, and it's cool to do it with other people. But it's also possible to do that at home in your living room, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So when people work with you, you said you work with women and executives. Are they typically women in the corporate world or women who are their own business owners?
Both. Okay. Both, yeah.
And so when somebody comes to work with you, you mentioned that you take them through the meditation, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of customize the plan. Is that what I'm understanding as well?
I have a basic structure that I walk people through, but I find that I have to customize it, or I want to customize it from every person I come to, because, you know, there might be certain people that are have done enough inner work that they've kind of worked out their inner demons. Then I can kind of move through things more quickly. And then some people really haven't done any inner work whatsoever. So they're like, all the parts of them are kind of misaligned. And there's a lot of inner demons and negative beliefs and things like that. So I might spend a little more time working through those. And when I'm talking about working through this, it's energetic, also, you know, kind of a talk therapy type of thing of working out, and also unearthing beliefs that they hold, that they are not even aware that they hold. But it usually comes out in the words that they speak.
Right.
So clearing out those beliefs sometimes takes longer. Some people take to these Taoistic practices and energy practices really quickly. Then I'll kind of advance them a little further along faster. But a lot of people who have not been exposed to it take a little time to actually to develop the feelings and sensations to move along. So yeah. So there's a basic structure, but I do customize, and the speed of progression depends on where people are coming from.
And when it comes to the actual business part of things,
mm-hmm.
You tend to have a very specific structure for that, or and do you tend to work with women who are in business a certain length of time, or in a certain amount of, you know, earning revenue in a certain place, or what does that look like?
Again, I have both.
Okay.
Generally, I mean, obviously they're funded, or, you know, maybe there are women who've gone from corporate world and they have some money saved up and they want to now do something, so they're in transition. Or, you know, women who are stay-at-home moms for a while and now they want to start a business. So they've been in the work, but they've been out of workforce for a little while, and now they want to do their own thing so they can have the flexibility with their kids and still have something for themselves. So it's different, person to person. And also,
type of client.
Pardon me?
Go ahead and say what you were going to say, and then I'll ask.
The last type is also like people who are, you know, executives who are working in companies already. So whether that's career advice, moving through the channels, or when they have to have difficult conversations, or there's been corporate restructuring and happening, and how to handle and deal with those kind of situations. So from a strategically who to align themselves with and whatnot, and kind of strategizing with them what the best kind of approach to any conflict situation might be. So yeah, ranging from within a company to all the way to starting a new business. So it's a range.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of different things. Neat.
Yeah. I mean, I've been through the process myself. Right. So I was in the corporate world for a long time, doing business development, strategic ventures. So both as an entrepreneur, being part of a large organization, launching businesses, which is what I did. And then actually as a business consultant, before I started doing the transformative coach work, I was working with small, medium-sized businesses, really kind of helping build their business plan, figuring out their strategies going forward, and then keeping them accountable to whatever plan they have in place. So that's kind of all married together now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and grab the book?
Yeah. You can find me at my website. It's very simple, sukisohn.com. That's spelled SUKISOHN.com. And my books, the links to my books are on my website, but you can also find them at Amazon under my name.
Awesome. And any final words you'd like to share with women in terms of just maybe enjoying the journey more of life?
Embrace being a woman. And really, it sounds a little cliche, but really, really, even think about what that means to you, to embrace being a woman.
Awesome. Some food for thought. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. Thanks, Tiffany.
This is a public service announcement from Peace, Love, and Wine. Hey, mermaid, are you feeling calm AF? If not, I have a solution for you, and it's free. Go to peaceloveandwine.com and grab your free self-care download by entering your name into the pop-up, or just go to the show notes and grab your Calm AF link there into your email, and we'll get you on your way to feeling good. Oh, yeah.